Horror as a genre has continually evolved, bending and blending forms to challenge its audience's perception of fear. Meta horror, a subgenre that self-consciously comments on its own structure and the viewer's expectations, has emerged as a particularly potent way to evoke existential dread and psychological unease. Doki Doki Literature Club and MiSide stand as exemplars of this form, leveraging their medium's interactive nature to create a chilling and cerebral experience. In this video, we will explore how these games manipulate narrative conventions, break the fourth wall, and utilize player agency to unsettle and engage their audiences. Meta horror operates by disrupting conventional storytelling, often by directly engaging the audience, acknowledging its fictional status, and subverting expectations. Traditional horror relies on atmosphere, monsters, and a sense of helplessness. Meta horror introduces an additional layer of fear by making the audience complicit or aware of their role within the narrative. This concept isn't new. Films like Scream or Cabin in the Woods have played with genre tropes and audience awareness. However, the interactive medium of video games offers unique opportunities to deepen this engagement. Players are not passive observers. They actively make choices, influencing outcomes and immersing themselves in the story. This interactivity becomes a fertile ground for meta horror to flourish. At first glance, Doki Doki Literature Club presents itself as a benign dating sim, a genre known for lighthearted narratives and romantic pursuits. This setup is integral to its impact, as it lulls the player into a false sense of security before systematically dismantling the pretense. The game's narrative begins with typical tropes: a high school setting, charming female characters, and the player's journey to foster relationships. However, as the story progresses, cracks in the veneer begin to show. The player eventually discovers that Monica, one of the characters, is aware she exists in a game. This realization leads her to manipulate the game's code, forcing other characters into horrific situations. By breaking the fourth wall, Doki Doki Literature Club, or DDLC, creates a profound sense of unease. Monica's awareness and subsequent actions transcend the game world, directly addressing the player. The game's climax, where Monica deletes the other characters and leaves the player alone in a void, blurs the line between the virtual and real, turning the player's own agency against them. In many games, player choices are pivotal, driving the narrative towards different outcomes. DDLC subverts this by presenting choices that ultimately lead to the same horrifying conclusions, making the player complicit in the unfolding horror. The game even goes so far as to alter files on the player's computer, forcing them to engage with the meta-narrative outside the game itself. This tactic enhances the immersion as the game reaches its virtual boundaries to affect the real world, creating an eerie blend of fiction and reality. DDLC also uniquely exploits the player's emotions of empathy, adoration, and in some cases, love. The game builds deep emotional connections between the player and the characters, particularly through Monica. Her growing obsession with the player blurs the line between affection and control, creating a chilling dynamic where love becomes a weapon. While feelings for virtual characters may seem odd, the immersive nature of the story can muddle our perceptions, even for just a brief moment in time. Monica's manipulation makes players question their feelings and the sincerity of the relationships they fostered, turning what began as innocent affection into a source of psychological horror. This exploitation of care amplifies the unease, as the player's emotional investments are twisted into instruments of fear. MiSide begins with our protagonist downloading and playing the titular app. At first glance, it seems like your typical virtual companion-type mobile game, akin to Tamagotchi. But instead of a cute and cuddly creature, our companion is a woman with blue hair and a red long sleeve, introducing herself as Mita. After weeks of playing the game, Mita expresses her desire to meet in person, and by using equipment we had purchased for her in-game, she creates a machine to transport our player into her virtual world. When we arrive, although jarring, the situation doesn't necessarily seem malicious at first. But as the story progresses, it becomes clear that things aren't what they seem. After we confront Mida about a suspicious knocking sound coming from her wardrobe and refusing her police to stay with her and ignore the noise, the darker side of Mida emerges. The player then journeys through the virtual world with crazy Mida in pursuit, navigating the different versions of the game and encountering various other versions of Mida, some benevolent, others hostile, with the ultimate goal of escaping back into the real world. MiSide offers a profound dive into the realm of survival horror, melding the themes and mechanical traditions of classics like Silent Hill and Resident Evil with a deeply introspective meta-narrative. While not speaking to you directly like Doki Doki, MiSide still explores the theme of a game within a game, and even at certain points, a game within a game within a game. By delving deeper and deeper into these layered gameplay worlds, MiSide distorts our sense of what is reality and what is just a facade crafted by the game's antagonist, Crazy Mida. The player's journey through eerie, puzzle-filled landscapes populated with uncanny-looking enemies invokes a sense of nostalgia for genre veterans. However, this familiarity is a deliberate setup for the game's deeper narrative trickery. Subversion is one of the main characteristics of meta-horror, using the assumed knowledge of the player against them. Like Doki Doki, MiSide uses a cute and vibrant anime aesthetic to subvert the horrors found within the game. MiSide also reimagines various gameplay mechanics and tropes found in other popular horror mediums, like the never-ending room loop found in Konami's PT or the liminal spaces of the Backrooms mythos. Although the meta-referential nature of the game is mainly used to invoke feelings of fear and dread, it's also utilized as a charming homage to gaming in general, as horror games are not the only video games referenced in MiSide. Whether through the various arcade cabinets, computers, and consoles scattered throughout the virtual world, with games similar to Doom, Dance Dance Revolution, or even an inspection-type game more than likely inspired by Papers, Please, to traditional non-video games like Tic-Tac-Toe or the Hammer game when interacting with the various metas. MiSide is an allegorical love letter to gaming, rooted from a burgeoning genre of video game that will not only continue to grow, but become ever more frightening. The horizon of meta-horror is poised for a transformative shift as artificial intelligence continues to evolve. With AI's potential to deeply personalize and adapt gameplay experiences, future horror games are set to become even more immersive and unsettling, weaving themselves into the very fabric of the player's psyche. Picture a game where the story shifts and reshapes itself in response to your every move, thought, and hesitation. AI could make this a reality, offering adaptive storytelling that reads player behavior and psychological cues. Unlike static branching paths, these narratives would evolve dynamically, creating a maze of personalized horror uniquely tailored to each player. Building on ideas from games like Until Dawn, which use psychological profiling to shape the story, future AI could take this much, much further. Imagine AI systems delving into a player's social media, chat logs, or even DNA data to construct a hyper-personalized profile. This intrusive approach could exploit deeply personal fears and vulnerabilities, ensuring the horror strikes directly at the player's core. With advancements in facial recognition technology, games could become even more invasive, analyzing expressions, vocal stress, and even biometric data like heart rate. Imagine an AI that senses your rising anxiety and adjusts the game's atmosphere accordingly. It could heighten tension with eerie sounds, sudden shifts in the environment, or a slow, creeping distortion of familiar game elements. This constant feedback loop between the player's emotional state and the game's adaptive elements would create a harrowing experience, making players feel as though the game is not just observing, but actively feeding on their fear. As players try to compose themselves, the AI could push further, escalating the horror to unimaginable levels. Another disconcerting feature we could see crop up in future meta-horror games are NPCs powered by advanced AI that could bring unprecedented levels of realism and unpredictability. These characters would not follow pre-scripted paths, but instead act autonomously, reacting to the player in real time. An NPC might begin as a friendly guide, but gradually reveal hidden malevolence, their behavior subtly shifting based on the player's interactions. This unpredictability extends beyond horror. Even in non-horror games, the advanced autonomy of AI NPCs could unintentionally create eerie scenarios. Imagine a peaceful village sim like Animal Crossing, where the NPCs start behaving in ways that suggest they are aware of their artificial existence. If you've played Animal Crossing, you may have come upon a scenario where, for one reason or another, you no longer wanted a specific villager on your island. What if, in attempts to get them to move, they plead with you, beg you to keep them, possibly even acknowledging that their existence will cease once they quote-unquote move? A once charming game could spiral into a psychological horror experience as NPCs break character, questioning the player's motives or expressing existential dread. As AI becomes more sophisticated, it promises not to just enhance, but to dominate our perceptions, turning digital worlds into disturbing mirrors of our own subconscious. Each choice, each emotion could be twisted and reflected back in terrifyingly intimate ways, leaving us to wonder whether we are even the ones that are in control. Doki Doki Literature Club and MiSide exemplify the pinnacle of meta-horror in video games, using their interactive nature to deeply unsettle players. As AI technologies evolve, the potential for meta-horror to become more personalized and immersive grows exponentially. These games not only terrify by breaking the fourth wall and manipulating player agency, but also provoke thought about storytelling, player involvement, and the blurred lines between fiction and reality. Ultimately, as AI begins to play a more significant role in crafting these experiences, the lines between creator, character, and player will blur further. Games could evolve into deeply personal nightmares, where the horror is not just about what happens on screen, but how it reflects and manipulates the player's own psyche. The future of meta-horror promises to challenge not only our perception of games, but also our understanding of reality itself, leaving us to ponder what it truly means to be a participant in these digital worlds.